The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and teenage sweat, lockers lined up like silent witnesses to all the dramas that unfolded between their chipped metal doors. It was just another Monday morning, but for Emily Carter, a 16-year-old junior who had transferred to Lincoln High only 3 weeks ago, it felt like she was walking into a battlefield. She carried her books close to her chest, her long hair falling over her face as a shield, hoping that today she could get to class without incident. But the universe had other plans, and the boys from the varsity football team, the self-proclaimed kings of the school, had already spotted her. They had mocked her since the first day she arrived, about her quietness, her pale skin, her second-hand clothes. She had ignored them, swallowed her pride, and kept walking with her head down, but their cruelty grew bolder every day. And this morning, she knew something was different the moment she heard the heavy footsteps rushing behind her. "Hey, new girl," one of them called, his voice dripping with arrogance. She didn't turn. She quickened her pace. But then a hand grabbed her backpack, yanking her backwards with such force that she stumbled and almost fell. Her books spilled across the hallway floor, scattering under the feet of passing students who either laughed or turned away in nervous silence. Emily's heart pounded as she bent down to pick them up, but before she could, another boy kicked one of the books down the hallway like it was a football, drawing cheers from his teammates. "Oops, fumble," he said with a grin. The hallway erupted with cruel laughter. Emily clenched her fists, but she stayed quiet. She had promised herself she wouldn't draw attention, that she wouldn't let her secret out. But when two of the bigger boys closed in from either side, smirking like wolves circling their prey, she felt her pulse shift from fear to something deeper, something hotter. One of them shoved her shoulder hard, slamming her against the lockers with a metallic clang that echoed through the hall. The other stepped closer, blocking her path, his hand pressing into the locker beside her head. "Where are you going in such a hurry, princess?" he sneered. The crowd around them grew. Students leaned against lockers, some whispering nervously, others pulling out their phones to record what looked like the setup for another humiliating moment. Emily's breath came shallow, but her eyes began to change. No one here knew that she had been training in martial arts since she was 5 years old. Her father, a retired military instructor, had taught her every strike, every throw, every counter. She had spent nights on the mat, mornings running drills until her legs ached, summers sparring with black belts twice her size. She had learned to endure, to control, to only fight when there was no other choice. But this was becoming no other choice. The quarterback of the football team, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped forward now, the leader of this little pack. He looked down at her with mocking eyes, his hand brushing against her hair as if daring her to react. "You think you're too good to talk to us, too good to smile." His tone was laced with arrogance. She could feel the eyes of the whole hallway watching, waiting to see what the quiet new girl would do. For a moment she stayed still, her heart pounding against the cool metal behind her. Then he leaned closer, his voice low, threatening. "Don't walk away from me." His arm moved, trying to pin her harder against the lockers, but in that instant, something inside Emily snapped like a taut wire breaking free. Her knee came up in a lightning, fast strike, driving with precision and brutal force into his midsection, just below his ribs. The sound he made was not a laugh this time, but a choked cry of pain as his breath was ripped from his lungs. The entire hallway gasped. His towering body doubled over instantly, collapsing toward the floor as he clutched his side, his football season ending in that single, devastating strike. The others froze, their mocking grins wiped clean. The boy on her right reached for her arm, but she pivoted, her body moving with the fluid instinct of years of training. Her elbow struck his chest, knocking him back into the lockers with a thud. The one on her left hesitated, and that hesitation was enough for Emily to step forward. Her voice calm but sharp, carrying across the stunned hallway. "Don't ever touch me again." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the groaning of their fallen leader, who lay curled on the floor gasping for air. No one dared laugh now. Phones that had been raised to record lowered slowly, students staring wide-eyed at the girl they had thought was weak, shy, and defenseless. Emily picked up her books calmly, her hands steady even though adrenaline coursed through her veins. She turned and walked down the hall, the crowd parting like water before her. No one dared block her path now, no one even whispered. For the first time since she arrived, Emily felt free. not because she wanted to fight, but because she had finally shown them that she was not prey. And yet, as she disappeared into her classroom, she knew this was only the beginning. The bullies would not take this humiliation quietly. They would come back. They would want revenge. But Emily was ready. She had been ready her whole life, and soon, the entire school would learn that the quiet girl they tried to pin against the lockers was trained to end more than just a football season. She was trained to fight back against anyone who tried to break her. The whispers started before the first class had even ended. By lunch, they were everywhere. Students sat at cafeteria tables, their heads leaned close together, voices buzzing with the same story. The quiet new girl had dropped Lincoln High's star quarterback with one strike. Videos had already been uploaded, spreading like wildfire across group chats. Some showed the exact moment his knees buckled and he collapsed, clutching his ribs. Some replayed her words, steady, cold, powerful, don't ever touch me again. For many kids at the school, it was the most satisfying thing they'd ever seen. But for the football team, it was humiliation burned into their pride. They were supposed to be untouchable, feared, admired. Now their captain limped with every step, glaring at anyone who dared mention Emily's name. And his teammates weren't about to let her walk away without punishment. Emily felt the weight of it as she carried her lunch tray. The cafeteria grew quieter when she walked in, eyes following her, some with awe, some with fear, some with resentment. She sat alone at the edge of the room, calmly opening her milk carton, though her instincts were sharp, tuned for danger. Her father's words echoed in her mind, words he had drilled into her since childhood. Stay calm, stay aware, and when they corner you, don't fight their numbers, break their will. She hadn't wanted to unleash that training in school, but the moment they shoved her against the lockers, they had left her no choice. Now the storm was gathering. She could feel it in the way the football players whispered at their table, shooting dark glances her way. After lunch, the trap was set. Emily was walking toward the library when she noticed the hall strangely empty, unusually quiet. Her steps echoed on the tiles. Her stomach tightened, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. Then, from behind her heavy footsteps, she turned slowly. 5 of them stood there, shoulder pads under hoodies, fists clenched, eyes burning with fury. At their center was Ryan, the quarterback, his side wrapped in a bandage, rage twisting his face. "You think you embarrassed me?" he growled. "You think you get to walk away after that? No one does that to me." "To us." His teammates flanked him, bigger and meaner than before, cutting off her retreat. Emily didn't back up. She let her bag slide off her shoulder, her eyes locking on theirs. "You should walk away," she said softly, but her voice carried, firm, unshaking. That made them laugh, a harsh, ugly sound. One of them lunged first, reaching to grab her wrist. But Emily's body moved like lightning. She twisted, his grip slipping uselessly, and in the same breath she drove her palm into his chest, sending him stumbling back into the lockers. The others cursed and charged, but she was already in motion. A kick lashed out, connecting with a knee, and another boy howled as he collapsed, clutching his leg. The hallway filled with the sharp rhythm of impact. Elbow, knee, strike, block, each movement precise, efficient, devastating. She wasn't just defending, she was dismantling them one by one. Ryan roared and charged at her, his bulk like a battering ram. He was bigger, stronger, but sloppy with anger. Emily sidestepped, his shoulder crashing into the lockers with a deafening clang. As he staggered, she struck, her knee rising again, this time driving into his thigh, cutting the power from his legs. He collapsed to one knee, gasping, the same way he had in the first fight, but this time his teammates weren't laughing. They were groaning on the floor, nursing bruises and twisted joints, the proud football warriors reduced to broken bodies in their own ambush. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Students who had gathered at the far end of the hall now stood frozen, their phones capturing every second, their eyes wide with disbelief. Emily stood tall, her breathing steady, her hair falling in loose strands around her face. She looked at the beaten players and then at the crowd, her voice calm but sharp. "You don't get to control people with fear, not anymore." Ryan tried to rise, but his leg buckled, pain shooting through his body. The other players didn't move. They were done. The fight was over, and everyone watching knew it. Emily picked up her bag, slinging it over her shoulder like nothing had happened, and walked through the parted crowd. For the second time, the hallway split open before her, but now there was no mockery, no smirks. There was only silence and respect. News of the fight spread faster than the first one. By the end of the day, Emily wasn't just the quiet new girl anymore. She was a symbol. The bullied whispered her name with hope. The arrogant avoided her with fear. Teachers didn't even know how to address it, stunned by the sheer force of what had happened under their roof. And the football team, their season was over, both literally and figuratively. Without their captain, without their intimidation, they were just boys in jerseys. Their reign of fear had been shattered by a girl they underestimated. That night, Emily sat at her desk, staring at her books. She hadn't wanted this. She hadn't wanted to fight, to be in the spotlight. But she remembered the faces of kids in the crowd, the ones who looked relieved, empowered, alive with the thought that maybe the bullies weren't untouchable after all. Maybe one person standing up was enough to break the illusion. She smiled faintly, her father's words ringing true again. Courage isn't about wanting to fight. It's about refusing to be broken. And so Emily Carter had written her story not with words, but with strikes, with courage, with unshakable resolve. The girl they tried to pin against the lockers became the girl who ended their football season, and she walked forward stronger, freer, and unafraid. So if you're watching this story right now, remember, silence only fuels the bullies. Stand up, fight back, not always with fists, but with courage, with strength, with unshakable belief in yourself. And if Emily's story inspired you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because more powerful stories like this are coming your way. Stay strong, stay fearless, and never let anyone pin you against the lockers.